Welcome to Real Estate Coaching Radio, starring award-winning real estate coaches and #1 international best-selling authors, Tim and Julie Harris. This is the #1 daily radio show for realtors looking for a no BS, authentic, real-time coaching experience. What's really working in today's market, how to generate more leads, make more money, and have more time for what you love in your life. And now your hosts, Tim and Julie Harris.
We are back, and this is our favorite day of the week because we get to talk about whatever the heck we want to talk about.
That's right.
Now, we've done some interviews the past couple of Fridays, and if you've not listened to those, make sure you go back and listen to them. But today, Julie and I absolutely positively have zero agenda, but we do have a ton of thoughts on our minds. We were just talking about what we want to talk with you guys about first. And so we're going to share some personal stuff with you. And we're doing this because I think, and I thought, and hopefully I'm right, that maybe a lot of you are needing to hear what we're about to talk about. So what we're going to talk about today is health. And what we're specifically going to share with you is something that Julie and I are doing. What day are we doing this? Friday?
Friday morning, yep.
Okay, Friday morning. Well, this is the Friday show. You meant next Friday.
Yes, sorry.
Right. So what we're doing is we are going to be doing a full body MRI scan.
MRI, full body scan. It includes, it's literally head to toe.
Yeah, it's literally head to toe. And you, if you've never had an MRI before, it's you lay in this big tube and there's magnets that go all over your body and they make all these funny noises and all the rest of it. But what you get as a result is a full body scan. And then there's a, what's the type of doctor that looks at it?
Like a radiologist.
A radiologist, yep. And also there's an AI radiologist and a real radiologist. And then they will, after the appointment, they'll go and share with you what your results were. Mm-hmm. And what they do is they monitor. Now, Julie and I do it every year. And you don't have to do it every year. You can do it every 2 years. But it's really, so where I'm going with all this is one of the things I want you guys all to consider. And I know this isn't something particularly, I think, exciting or motivational topic. But you guys all know this, that if you don't have health, you've got pretty much nothing. So you want to make sure you take care of your body, especially as you're building your wealth. And most medical care has not been designed to do preventive. It's only been designed to essentially solve problems once they exist. Well, I don't know about you guys, but problems in general are best avoided.
Yeah, let's get on top of that before they turn into something.
Exactly, especially the problems that are health related. So I'll strongly encourage you guys to go have and can you spell it for them and tell them where the website is?
Yes, give me 1 second. I think it's Prenuvo, but I'm going to spell it Prenuvo.
Yeah, and we have no business relationship with them. No. And Prenuvo, if you're listening, we wouldn't mind having a business relationship with you, but we don't. So yes, go to their website. Again, Julie, spell it. Prenuvo. Okay, and yes, and you can do. It's not that expensive, is it? Full body is $2,500.
I think that's right. And they've got a lot of really great FAQs on there. They've got a lot of great testimonials. People who thought that there was nothing genetically, waiting for them. They had no symptoms of anything, and some little shadow or spot turned out to be something. And because they found it, they live longer.
Right. Well, so what it does is it keeps essentially like a running tally of what's going on in your body. It's the reason you want to have it done every year. And remember, this is an MRI, so this isn't radiation. So you're going to be able to compare year over year. Yeah. And the AI does it. And also, obviously, the doctor is going to review what the AI said. And then you can start keeping an eye on things if anything's not, going as you think it should. Now, another thing, so definitely sign yourself up for that. And you don't have to spend $2,500, by the way. They have different versions of it where you can do, like, I think just your torso. You can do all these other things.
Brain, stuff like that. And there are locations for this all over the country.
Now, I will say this too. Julie and I are in our, let's just put it this way. We are about to experience another birthday, each of us are, and we have a combined age of 109.
You do the math.
I'm not allowed to say what Julie's age is, but yes. So let's just say that we met in high school, and I was a junior and she was a sophomore, so you guys can do the math. In any event, so that is something health-wise you want to be focusing on, not when you're in your 50s, but ideally when you're a lot younger, because then you're going to have a lot better, essentially, track or a lot better records of what's going on. And again, normal doctors aren't going to be telling you to do any of these things, so you're going to have to be proactive about your own health care. And yes, you do have to pay for this yourself. Now, I'm going to give you guys another one. You definitely want to be doing regular blood tests. And talk about that, Julie. You do that at every 60 days or every 6 months?
Quarter. I try to do it every quarter, but It ends up about 3 times a year. So blood tests, that you can request different panels, they call them, right? But what I do is a hormone one, excuse me, and I also do like a vitamin mineral. What am I deficient at? And for me, I was really surprised. I'm vitamin D deficient, which makes zero sense because I'm in the sun all the time. We're outside, we go on walks all the time. We live in the Caribbean. How could I possibly be vitamin D deficient? And you say, well, big deal, go out in the sun more or wear less sunscreen or something like that. But what the doctor explained to me was it's not the vitamin D deficiency itself, but it's that if that gets worse, that's an indication that something really significant could go wrong later. So if you get in front of that now, so I take a supplement for vitamin D, I would never have done that on my own. I wouldn't have thought to do that without the blood test. So it can find lots of different things that you can adjust. And because your hormones change, you want to do it not just once every 2 or 3 years. I do it fairly regularly.
Now, so let's talk about hormones.
Yeah.
I have been doing hormone replacement therapy for around 10 years. And hormone replacement therapy is where you go to, and depending on where you are, what state, it's easy usually to find a hormone replacement, an HRT doctor. Hold on a second. And so what they'll do is they'll draw your blood, and then they'll look at what your testosterone levels are, your free testosterone levels are, your estrogen levels are. They'll also look to see what your PSA is, all these things. And again, the benefits of doing this is you're being proactive. And so the normal, I'm going to try to get all this right. Julie and I are obviously not medical doctors. You can tell by how much we're floundering on some of these acronyms and terms, but just planting the seeds so hopefully you guys can be feeling like you have some direction with going and being proactive with your own health. So in men, and we're going to talk about HRT for women in here in a second because that's really interesting. So in men, when a man reaches late 30s, early 40s, like almost all of them have their testosterone levels drop off dramatically. And men have a lot of ego associated with testosterone, and they think that lower testosterone levels or rather sexual dysfunction are indicative of lower testosterone levels, and it's not true. There's not a direct correlation between sexual function or dysfunction and T levels. I mean, there is, but it's not like you would think. So a lot of men, especially older men, frankly, have a big ego association with their testosterone levels, which is kind of ridiculous. So I'm going to tell you guys a true story of how I actually got started on this journey myself. I had a coaching client, and this is a coaching client that I'd had for probably maybe 10 years. And I had notes going back on him for 10 years. I talked with him every single week. And I was coaching him when he, was in his, if I remember correctly, mid-30s. And I did notice that he was, aging. And he was kind of aging in a sort of obvious, maybe a little bit more quickly than he should have. He was gaining weight. He was losing his hair. He did not have the energy and enthusiasm he once had. He certainly wasn't being as ambitious. He used to have, and I had all these in my notes, right? So I could just jump into the time machine, the Wayback Machine, and I could see what he was excited and motivated about 10 years prior. And when I would talk to him about it, he wouldn't really, I remember, oh, you know what? I'm just happy with this. I'm happy with that. So look, over time, his life had become a series of hacks and compromises. And it was sad to watch, but, I'm there to help him with his particular goals. I'm not going to certainly, set goals for him and tell him what he should be doing unless he asks me to. But I'm going to be there to co-create goals and then help him be accountable to accomplishing them. Anyway, I started to see a change in him. He started taking listings again. Julie and I had a real estate event in Southern California that we hosted, a private mastermind. And I saw him and I barely recognized him because he was in really good shape. Then on the next coaching call, I started to ask him what the hell was going on. And he said that he started taking HRT, hormone replacement therapy, testosterone. And as a result of that, not only was he able to lose body fat, but he also, and at this point he was like 43 or 44. I hope I'm getting all my facts right. But he was also telling me about how he was feeling more, virile, if you want to use a word, how he had more focus, how he was less sleepy during the day. Everything in his life had changed. I mean, obviously everything in his life has changed. He sort of rolled the clock back, but he combined it with changing. He went a low carb and he went, changed some other lifestyle things, stopped drinking alcohol, if I remember correctly. But everything in his life changed. And it all started with his realization that his testosterone was low. So what happened? He told me that he went to the doctor. He went to 2 doctors. His first one was his GP, normal doctor. Normal doctor did the blood test, said your testosterone level was fine. And I remember these numbers because I've told this story a number of times. His original testosterone level was like, 290 or something like that. And again, I'm not a doctor, but I think normal ranges are like normal ideal ranges are from like 300 to like 850 or something like that. Oh, you found it?
Yeah, I looked that up. Depends on how old you are, but you're right. In the 200s is definitely low.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Okay. Well, so anyway, the ideal range, there's not it's a little bit, again, not a doctor. There's a little bit of
they say 300 to 1,000, but that's a huge range.
Exactly. That's what I was trying to express. Thank you, Julie. I remember I'm on cold medicine, dear listener. Zoe got me sick again, but it is what it is.
You have a 5th grade germ.
Exactly. I got a 5th grade germ. So he had his blood test done. The doctor said you were fine. You're in the low normal range. And then he wasn't content with that. He went to a doctor that specialized in HRT. And the doctor said, well, that is true. You're in the low normal range, but wouldn't you like to be in the upper normal range? And then it took him no more than like 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, or 2 months, maybe 3 months, where his testosterone level was up towards that, in that 900 range. And he said his entire life basically started to change. It sounds like I'm trying to sell you something, and I'm not. I'm just telling you the story that he told me. Now, I then remembered all this, and then I had some other coaching clients that I've had as coaching clients for a long period of time, and I told them this story. And to a person, they all had the same experience, and to a person, they all went on HRT, and to a person, all of them had their lives all changed dramatically. One of them in particular, this is worth mentioning, I don't think I ever told you this. Mm-hmm. One of them was a ex-military guy, and had some concussions from being in it was the first Gulf War, and he'd been knocked out like 2 or 3 times. Mm-hmm. And I wish I knew more about all this so I could explain it more lucidly. But he had some damage that was done to his brain that kept his brain from making testosterone. Mm-hmm. And so he actually, he not only went on testosterone, but he, for like a month or 2, he was on he took vitamin C shots too, or something like that. And that got his body to the point where, and he did have a lot of dysfunction other than, normal, and that again made him feel a lot more youthful, a lot more focused, and a lot more ambitious. And it is really interesting when I'm thinking back about all these guys, I'm thinking back like how all of them were becoming resolved and giving up on life, really kind of just accepting it. And that goes to environment. Like if all the other men around you, and I'm talking mostly to guys right now, but if all the other men around you are all sort of aging in the same, following the same pattern, and you're looking at pictures of your dad when he was your age and he kind of looks like you're just going to assume, well, I'm getting old, best days are behind me. But it doesn't have to be like that. You just have to start being more responsible for your own health care. And by the way, HRT is not expensive, less than $200 a month. Now, I'm going to pivot and talk about female HRT. You ready? All right. So, and then I'm going to talk myself silly because it's the cold medicine.
Well, we should talk about, we mentioned we had our eyes done not too long ago.
Yeah,
we should talk about that too.
You'll talk about that next. Yeah. Okay. It's gruesome, but we will.
Yeah.
All right. So, there has never, Julie's not on any HRT. And she has her normal state is having high testosterone. So if you ever guys seen pictures of Julie on Instagram, she looks like she's really lean. She's always been like that. Not as easy as it was for her when she was younger, but she's always been like that. Well, obviously, Julie's age, she's going to be dealing with menopause. And menopause means that her hormones are going to be out of balance. Well, guess what we did? We went and researched HRT for females, and I found one report online that was talking about how it was the worst thing ever that women could do. And then being, who I am, I researched that report. And I found out that report was written, I think it was one report written by one doctor back, I want to think it was the early 90s.
It's pretty
And all these other reports after that were all based on that. And nobody had actually cracked open that guy's clinical research saying that women going on HRT is going to cause all kinds of, horrible problems for them. None of it is true. And all kinds of research, it's like men, HRT for men. All right. So there again were reports saying that, well, if you go and get on HRT, it's going to increase your likelihood of having all these nasty things happen to you. And when I was, researching this before I did it myself and for my coaching clients, I discovered all that stuff was bad information as well. Matter of fact, the exact opposite was true. When they had done studies on men that had died of all kinds of horrible diseases, every single one of them had low testosterone. every single, like all the nasty problems that can happen as you get older, almost every single one of them have all the diseases associated with having low T. So is there a correlation? There probably is. Because if you have low testosterone, you're not going to be as motivated. You're probably going to be overweight. You're probably going to have not as much muscle mass. You're probably not going to have as much bone density. Thus, you're going to be more prone to breaking things you don't want to break. You're going to have cardiovascular issues, another problem with having low testosterone. You're probably not going to accomplish much in your life after a certain age because you're not going to have the energy and enthusiasm to do it. All these things. So do this homework yourself. There's so much written about this versus just 10 years ago, or maybe a little longer than that now, maybe 12 years ago. When I was researching all this, I had to really dig, but now there was just a plethora. And I have to give YouTube credit. On YouTube, there's fantastic actual T doctors that are talking about these long-term case studies, their own experiences with their own patients, their own experiences with themselves. So I strongly encourage every single man out there to have your testosterone level checked by someone that specializes it, and chances are it's not your GP. So as far as female doctors go, Julie, are you at all prepared to talk about that? Because you haven't really gone too far down that rabbit hole yet.
I go down the rabbit hole to the extent that I am doing my regular blood tests. Obviously, I do the so fun OBGYN visit every 2 years for me. Some people, depends on what you have in your family, but they used to say every 6 months to a year, and then they revised it to every 2 to 5. So I wanted to talk about, every woman hates that experience, but that's important, again, as a precursor to find is anything going on. If you only do it every 10 years, something could come and sneak up and kick your butt.
Okay, so in that order, right? So what are the things, again, we're talking about health today, and what are the things that, kill most people? Cardiovascular. Yeah. And then there's a whole bunch of different things depending on
different cancers.
But it's almost always cardiovascular, number one.
Heart disease is number one.
Heart disease is number one. So so what can you do to basically lessen your likelihood of having heart disease? Well, the first thing is obviously your diet. You might have a genetic predisposition to certain types of problems, but almost all of them, Julie, what's those two terms? Again, I can't think straight because of the cold medicine. But the genetic and
epigenetic.
Okay, explain the difference.
So we all have genetics, obviously, that that you're programmed with. But epigenetics is the ability to turn a gene on or off. So let's say, for example, everybody in your family is overweight. You just have a tendency in your family to be obese, overweight. You look at your uncles and aunts and moms and dads, and they're all the same, and you just figure that's your lot in life. And yet, when you consistently adopt a different lifestyle, different habits, like working out every day, eating more healthy, they have shown that you can actually turn off, in this case, an obesity gene. You would turn that off. Well, you have other things that you can turn on.
But not literally. You're not going in there and just...
No, but you are changing the tendency.
Well, through your behaviors, right?
Through your behaviors,
through the food you're eating and the exercise you're doing, you're essentially the embedded...
you're fighting the embedded programming.
Exactly. The software that would normally trigger you to gain weight, and then gain weight leads to all these other health problems, but you can head that off the pass. And now, if you're going to be proactive, like what we're strongly encouraging all of you to do, you can head it off even before you even get anywhere sight of the pass.
Yes, that's exactly right. So there are a series of things that you can do proactively to make sure that you're catching anything early, so you don't have to deal with far worse later. The OBGYN would be one. The Prevenu full body scans would be one. The blood work is another one. Having a physical at least every couple of years or so. And again, we're not doctors. Somebody's going to post that we're giving medical advice.
We're not giving medical advice.
Here's why we talk about this.
Put your little busy fingers to give it a break. We're not giving medical advice. We're just trying to give you guys, sharing with you our own personal experiences. Right. Go and explore all this on your own.
No cat on the keyboard.
No cat on the keyboard saying, Tim and Julie should just talk about real estate.
Well, and yet, here's the thing. When we are talking our usual podcast and we're talking about goal setting, physical is one of the 5 areas of life to be setting goals in. And it's a lot easier to set physical goals when you're in good shape, when you're in good health. And if there is something going on with you, wouldn't you want to find out earlier rather than later?
Well, it's a great way also if you decide to take this seriously, you're going to go have your blood checked. You decide to put yourself on, your doctor's going to decide to put yourself on HRT. You're going to now decide to go low carb or whatever you're going to do to stop eating so many carbs. You're going to start losing weight. You're going to go to the gym. You're going to start looking better. You're going to start feeling more confident. You're going to start, you guys get it? I mean, these are all actions you can take, and it's, Julie calls it habit stacking, but really what you're doing is you're essentially, you can say in a way, health-wise, you're jumping in a time machine going back 10 years, but you're also changing you've taken a pivot. You've been on this long road that's going to lead you pretty much where you can expect it to lead you, but now you decided to get off a different off-ramp, and you're going to go on a different storyline. That's what we're discussing, and that's what we're sharing with you.
Well, that's exactly right. So another one that I would put in the category of unpleasant, but you should do, is the colonoscopy. We didn't talk about that. How many people, especially as you get, what do they recommend, 45 to 50 now, years old, as you get closer to that, people avoid that like crazy because you just think about that. It gives you a panic attack, right? And yet, here's the thing, guys. They knock you out. It's not that bad. It's great to get that off of your plate. I feel relieved we did it, don't you?
Well, I mean,
it's not fun,
I
but
was going to talk
drugs
about
are good.
I was going to talk about the knock you out part.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to tell a story.
Oh,
okay.
So
No. So we are going to do colonoscopies here in Puerto Rico.
Oh, that story, yeah.
Okay, we're going to do colonoscopies here in Puerto Rico. And Puerto Rico, for the most part, has really, truly fantastic doctors. Really, honestly, I'm so impressed.
There's a lot of good doctors.
Just amazing. So we go to this colonoscopy doctor, and we're talking to him, and he was recommended to us by a friend, and the whole thing. And I had a colonoscopy before, and it's, we're sitting there. Julie's going to get hers done for the first time. And we're sitting talking to this doctor, and he's going through, this is the procedure. This is how it's going to work. And as all doctors love to do, giving you way more information than you want. I'm like, dude, just shut the hell up. Tell me where to sign and tell me when to show up. But nope, he wants to show us pictures and graphs and all this other stuff.
And a lot of paperwork.
And of course, Julie thinks all that's interesting, so I have to grin and bear it. Anyway, we get to the point where he tells us to go to the pharmacy, and he wants us to pick up like Valium and all this other shit. I'm going like, I had this done before, and I don't remember the doctor telling me to get Blado prior to the appointment,
Yeah, because, aren't we going to be knocked out?
Right, and that's what I said. I said, so no, we don't want to go and get all that. We just instead want to basically hit the protocol or whatever it's called.
We want you to be mostly awake.
Right. Well, so turns out in Puerto Rico,
What?
turns out in Puerto Rico for colonoscopies, they don't knock you completely out. They basically call it twilight sedative. I can't talk correctly with my cold medicine.
Okay.
Yeah, but they don't knock you completely out. So here's this doctor explaining to us, and he said these exact words. Okay, ready for this? Colonoscopy. There's a thing up your thing doing some things, okay? And the dude says to us, he goes, and if you feel any pain during the procedure, that's nature's way of, I'm like, what?
Of telling us that we should stop.
Exactly. That's what he said. And I looked over at Julie, and Julie was trying to be polite. You guys know Julie. And I looked at her, I said, we're getting the hell out of here.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. We didn't even get our deposit back. We just left. No way am I going to do that. Anyway.
Nope.
So in the United States, they knock you completely out. So that's our colonoscopy in Puerto Rico story. So make sure you know what you're getting into before before they literally
do your research.
Before they literally get into
and adjust accordingly.
You. Know what you're getting into before.
All right. Maybe the pot is peaked. I don't know.
All right. No. So these are all things. And as far as heart health goes, really the essence we have never had this done, but I do know several cardiologists, and you can pay to have this done. But we haven't done it. But through the Provenue scan, they do a scan of your heart. But the best scan that you can have for your heart is actually where they do the dye injection, and then they basically can look to see where all your arteries and all your, making sure everything's flowing correctly. So that's like a different level that we haven't done yet. They don't do it here in Puerto Rico, but I do have it on my list of things to explore. We have some friends that have done it. Like I said, cardiologists have told me that that's pretty much the foolproof way of going and checking your heart's health. But again, it goes back to the working out. It goes back to taking care of all the things you guys know to do. All right, so let's talk about something else that sounds a little gruesome as we describe it, but we're both thankful that we did it. And we did this actually about a month and a half ago. Mm-hmm. All right, go for it.
Yes, it is the eye surgery. And it's what we did was called intraocular eye, lens replacement. Different than LASIK. Some of you guys listening have had LASIK. In our case, the goal was to not have to wear glasses anymore. And there's degrees of that too, right? So we had your near vision, your medium vision, and your far vision. Your medium would be watching the TV screen, your far is driving, and of course your near is reading.
So the normal, my mom, 85, she lives with us. And when we were living in Texas, she was living with us. And she had started to develop cataracts. And so she had her lenses replaced. And she had one eye set for distance and one eye set for up close, okay? Both lenses replaced. So this procedure has been around for forever.
Yeah.
And it was designed originally for people like my mom who had cataracts. And your grandma probably has had this done too. Maybe some of you guys have had it done too, to have your lenses replaced to get rid of the cataracts.
Pretty much everybody, 100% of the time, will get cataracts.
That's what they said. Basically, and everyone, once they hit about 45, 100% of the time is going to need to wear glasses.
Now, that was not our issue. We
No.
didn't have that, but it's a similar surgery, except what we did is...
What's the same? It's the same procedure.
It's the same procedure, but a different lens.
Right.
That you can have a cataract replaced with a clear lens in different variations.
Right.
But our lenses have our prescription in them. That's what the rings are about, and that's why we never have to wear glasses again.
Well, so she said some things there that you guys. So basically, the lenses themselves have. If you guys go and research this on your own, they have these tiny little rings in them, and essentially, what the rings allow you to do is see it in almost 20. It depends on what your starting point is, but for the most part, you're going to see 20/20 distance, mid range, and up close
Without glasses.
Without glasses. And so I want you to think about that. So if you just, again, this is one of those things that I didn't know was available until, guess what? We were at a party and I asked somebody who I knew had always worn glasses, what hell happened to his glasses? And he's the one that told me about it. I got started down this rabbit hole.
Yep.
But the procedure itself was 15 minutes. It was not, I won't say it's pleasant, but it wasn't unpleasant. We would both do it again. And it means, in essence, that we don't have to wear glasses anymore, and we'll never get cataracts. And the lenses that we have are,
They're 200-year lenses.
Yeah, they're 200-year lenses.
That was funny. It made me think, well, I guess just in case AI makes us all live forever, we're good, right? I don't know. But that's something I'm glad that we did.
Right.
Yeah.
So, Julie, there's people listening right now that they're thinking about what we're saying. They're maybe going to replay this. They're going to maybe go back and write some things down and start exploring some of these themselves. That's my motivation for choosing this as a focus for today. And I'm going to talk specifically next about the person who is not knowing where to start and feeling overwhelmed because maybe for a long time they've neglected their health. And maybe it's not 100%. Maybe you eat well, but you drink too much alcohol and you're a little overweight and do things like that. So I'm going to share with you guys some things that I learned that I thought was really fascinating. I guess a list of things I wish I would have done differently. Number one, I wish I would have gone into HRT sooner. Okay. Number two, I wish I would have been less skeptical about being proactive about healthcare. Because again, I was a poor kid and we hardly ever went to doctors.
Survival of the fittest.
Seriously. I mean, I got sent to school sick all the time. And so I was not somebody who was very comfortable being around doctors. And a lot of the medical care stuff, those doctors, they want to do a really good job, but the way that the financial structures work with insurance companies, it's not really conducive for them to get to know you. So you're going to have to be proactive. You're going to have to be your own best expert. You're going to have to be your own, really someone's going to have, you're going to have to take the time and really drill down on what you want to be experiencing health-wise. And there's really two, and this is something that you'll hear a lot of times, and I don't really know how to resolve this in my mind, but you have to optimize for longevity. It's getting to the point where you can have both, but for a long time, you had to optimize for longevity or you have to optimize for quality of health or quality of life, right? And now you're able to do both if you're proactive. So if you're wanting to know where to start and you're kind of in this intermediate area, I'll give you guys hopefully what you'll see as the big bullet points from today's show. Number one, definitely want to explore HRT, whether you're a man or a woman. And we didn't really talk too much about the female HRT, but it works the same way. You essentially can go and have your blood drawn. They'll look at your different hormones, and then women can get on actually testosterone, very low dose testosterone and some other things. And then they recheck your blood and they see if your levels are where they're supposed to be. And then they ask a lot of questions like, how are you sleeping? How do you feel? Like some people don't do well, women and men, with higher levels of testosterone. They get anxious, they get nervous, they have all these other psychological issues. So they ratchet it down. So you don't want to be in the upper range. You maybe operate best and feel best if you're in the mid-level. That's the point. But if you stack these things, so you're going to get on HRT, And then what I want you to seriously consider is looking into a low-carb diet. And low carb is another one of those things that for some reason triggers a lot of people, and I don't understand why. All of us, whether you like it or not, and I'll be honest with you, from a personal perspective, I don't particularly like it. I don't like being a carnivore. I just don't. I mean, I'd prefer if I could get away with being healthy and accomplishing health goals and not have to eat meat, I would. I know Julie's the same way.
Sure.
Okay.
Except that your body needs it.
Except your body needs it. And so if you go a low carb diet, and you cut out sugar. Sugar is absolute poison. In the evolution of man, let's say, if you believe in the evolution of man, but that's a different topic. But their sugary things were such a rare thing in our diets. Up until probably just maybe a few hundred years ago, it was really, probably only 200 years ago, it was really rare to come across anything sweet. So when you eat sugar, especially processed sugar, but even cane sugar, your body reacts in such a way that it starts to store body fat. And all these other nasty things start to happen. And you get addicted to it. And sugar is in freaking everything. If you guys have ever traveled to Europe and you've eaten like really well, if you go to Italy and you eat really well and you don't eat processed foods and you eat even pasta and whatnot, you'll be shocked because you'll lose weight. Because the crap you were eating in the United States was so chock full of sugar.
Yeah, the processed foods, the corn syrup, stuff like that. All of, we have Zoe read labels. And, one of the rules is if you can't pronounce the word, it's probably not good for you. Monosodium glutamate, for example, all that kind of stuff. So when you're looking for ingredients, and I think you know this, the first ingredient is what it has the most of.
Yeah.
And as you go down the list, it's less and less and less. So, when you go, that is amazing. Like, especially in France and Italy, where you feel like you're eating all the time, which you are, and it's all really, really good. But if you look at the ingredients, for example, in Naples, where pizza was invented, there is a specific, you can't say that it's a Napoli pizza unless it has these ingredients. And there's only like 3 ingredients. You've got yeast, flour, a tiny bit of natural sugar, and you're supposed to use mineral water and olive oil. And that's it.
Well, but
there's not
Julie,
all this other junk.
You just said something. Tiny bit of natural cane sugar. But here's the fascinating thing. If you look at the ingredients of any kind of pizza crust in the United States, it all has sugar in
Preservatives
it. And all kinds of crap. And all that stuff basically is having a nasty, RFK, all the things that are happening with medical stuff right now. You guys are going to see a revolution in the essentially the quality of the food that we all get. But if you're wanting to know where to start, it's going to be stop putting the same things into your body, and that's going to have a profound effect. It's going to be hard, especially if you're used to eating a lot of sweet. Our friend Orlando Montiel, who we're going to be seeing here, he used to eat a lot of junk food, and he stopped eating all this candy and stuff, and he looks great, and he feels great, and he's got more energy now since I've known him. That's for sure.
It's better for your teeth too.
Well, everything. It's better for your heart, your liver, your kidneys, your skin, your hair.
But even like soda that has corn syrup in it.
Yeah.
Like that's why I'm addicted to sparkling water and regular water and water with lemon. Because most of that stuff is bad. You even have to read what's in juices for kids.
Oh yeah, it's chock full of sugar. Like don't give kids juices. I mean, that's really, Julie argues with me all the time about that. Well, it's natural. No, it's not natural that you're going to take. If you look at the ingredients, and so
it has to say apple juice and water, or
Right.
it says lemon and water. That's
Exactly.
basically it.
Right.
And I think that a lot of the things, it's like, people, there's a whole discussion just about dog food. The reason that dogs are sick and have allergies and all these problems is look at the ingredients in their dog food.
Well, but Julie, what was it? We heard this the other day. The average male, again, you might remember this. I forget at what age, the testosterone levels have dropped in 18-year-old men by like 50% compared to like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And the average girl is going to puberty 6 years earlier than 20 years
that.
ago. Mm-hmm. And people are like, well, that's just the way it goes. That's the way it goes when you screw with your body for too long.
Well, that's right.
And eat, funky
Junk.
foods. So yes, consider going low carb. Do your own homework on this.
And stay active. You have to exercise. Being sedentary is not good for anyone.
Okay, so that was the next thing I was going to talk about. Now, a lot of you absolutely hate cardio, and I get it.
I hate cardio.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
You can actually get, and this will, again, not health experts. Don't listen to us. Julie and I are just talking. Don't type nasty things wishing we would just talk endlessly about real estate scripts. This is our Friday show.
It's more for us than you.
Yeah,
Sorry.
exactly. Well,
No.
well, because there's somebody listening right now I know we're going to have,
I know.
we're going to run into them at the airport. They're going to meet us at a real estate event, and they're going to come up and say, I listened to that podcast you guys did. I went and had that test done. And because of that, I had this discovery and now I'm
going to live longer.
Right. And so that's who the show
hope
is
so.
for.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right. So if you have to choose between doing cardio and doing interval weight training, do interval weight training, which is easier for all of you guys to do. So if you do, for example, kettlebells, which Julie and I are addicted in a good way too, that is going to be enough cardio in between your sets of kettlebells as if you'd gone on the treadmill. Because what you want to do is you want to get your heart rate up and then get it back down, up and get it back down.
Yeah.
Intervals. And if you do too much cardio, it's almost impossible to build muscle mass. The hardest thing to do as you get older, and now that Julie and I have almost a combined age of 109, I can attest to this, but the hardest thing to do is build muscle mass and keep muscle mass. So in muscle mass is a lack of muscle mass is a precursor to, again, a whole bunch of nasty problems that you don't want to be dealing with in your life. So consider getting involved in like Orange Theory, and I mean we love it, but at the same time half of it's cardio, and so I could be a little bit critical of that.
Yeah, I was looking for the exact name of the podcast. It's actually called Zoe, Z-O-E, but it's a health podcast for women. They were talking about, because you made me think of this, about maintaining muscle mass. And they said as you get older, especially as you go through menopause, you want to use heavier weights and fewer reps, not going lighter and lighter. And I see a lot of ladies at the gym that are a little bit older, and they use like these little wheezy like 3-pound weights. Probably they're thinking, well, that's all I can handle. So work your way up. Maybe it is all you can handle for 2 weeks. Then you go to 5-pound weights, and you go to 7-pound, then you go to 10-pound. So I feel like it makes a big difference to me to use the heavier weights, not in every exercise, but to maintain, because just the composition of your body is different as you get older.
All right, let's talk about something though. Most assuredly, it might even get us flagged, but I'm going to talk about this. Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to talk about semaglutide.
Okay. I have a call coming up. So.
Oh, you do? What time?
12.
Okay, got it. So I see the clock. Yeah. All right. So semaglutide, and there's commercial names for it. What's the commercial name? Do you remember? Ozempic is one.
Ozempic is one.
You guys know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
All right. So we talked about this originally 3 or 4 years ago on one of our podcasts we were doing during COVID. That's when a lot of you guys discovered us. And we got so much crap when we talked about this because the FDA had just approved semaglutide, which is the peptide, and then the Ozempic and these other names are the commercial names for it, had just approved it for weight loss.
Wegovy, I think, is one.
Yeah, Wachovia, whatever it
Wegovy.
was. Right. So anyway, if you are looking for and here's the thing I find astonishing about semaglutide. Again, not a doctor, do your own homework, is they're discovering that not only does it make it so that you lose weight and a lot faster, but all the other things. Julie, hit up the chat GPT so we can read them some of this. I was listening to the All In podcast, it was 2 or 3 podcasts ago, and they're discovering that semaglutide that people are taking to lose weight also is causing people to have less nerves. The FDA just approved semaglutide for alcohol and drug addiction. Semaglutide, and this was a friend, Unite Rob, okay, one of our friends who was large and now he's not, got on semaglutide, but he told me a story on how he was taking all these high cholesterol drugs, and he was having his statins, and he was having his blood taken on a regular basis. The doctor took his blood, same doctor he'd been using forever, took his blood as a regular appointment, called him up the next day and said, I need you to go have it done again. Something got screwed up at the lab. Went back in, same test results. Doctor said, what are you doing differently? Rob said, semaglutide. And what had happened was the semaglutide caused all of his levels to get well within the healthy range. And I think he told me within like less than 90 days. And he lost a lot of weight.
And he doesn't have to take all that
He got off all the statins. Again, not a doctor, not suggesting you stop or start any particular drugs, but you want to do this own research. Julie, what did you find?
Well, lots of things, and it seems like every week there's new stuff, right? Improved blood sugar control. It lowers blood sugar levels. Let's see, that helps with diabetes, cardiovascular benefits. Studies have shown that semaglutide can reduce the risk of major adverse cardiovascular events like heart attack and stroke in adults with diabetes or other cardiovascular disease, kidney disease. It slows the progression of that. Anti-inflammatory effects. Let's see. Potential cognitive benefits. Emerging studies say that it may have protective effect on brain health, lowering the risk of cognitive decline and things like dementia. reduced osteoarthritis symptoms. Let's see, knee pain, like things that you wouldn't think are related to each other,
Well,
right? And addiction management.
It's the
Inflammatory.
Inflammation. You're right. That's what, and inflammation has been a leading cause for a lot of nasty problems too. And the last point, I don't know if you read this, was addiction management, which I mentioned. So again, be your own best doctor, because if you go to most of the normal places to do research, if you're just believing, old school media, they're going to not talk like.
Well, yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, so for example, there have been some recent news stories about, you don't want to take semaglutide because so-and-so had this incident and they had a seizure over that, or I think that's some lady died of it. Then they get into, so that's the headline, right? Oh, well, I wouldn't want to take that. That sounds really dangerous. So then you go deeper, do your own research, and it turns out that those people were not in any way following the instructions of the dosage, and they thought, well, if a little bit of semaglutide is good, if I 10x the dosage, it must be really good. And of course, would you do that even with Tylenol? You wouldn't. But there are people that do this kind of thing, then it becomes a headline and then it becomes a thing. So do your own research and make sure that you know what you're actually talking about.
And I'm not going to be a big proponent of doing your own, being your own doctor, but frankly, ChatGPT is a great place to get started when you're wanting to explore any more of these things. And then educate yourself about it, know the pluses and the minuses, the both sides of the argument. And then find doctors that you feel comfortable with. And and you're going to have to, in most cases, pay for all the stuff out of pocket, because again, insurance only is there for the most part to solve problems once you've got them. And I don't know about you guys, but like I said, I'd rather not have problems in the first place. Yeah. So be proactive about this. Julie, you remember that, the poem that you and I both love, about
The Turn in the Road?
Yeah. Do you know it off the top of your head? Yes.
I took the road less traveled. I don't know it by memory. I'd have to look it up.
Well, can you read? Can you ask AI to find you the most important passage? So there's this. This is Clint Eastwood's famous for saying this, but I've heard this from a lot of other people too. Don't let the old man in, or don't let the old woman in.
Right.
And so with modern medical care and where we're going, there's every reason to believe with AI, and we're going to see some absolute unbelievable things happen with healthcare. Keep your bodies and your minds and your spirits as healthy and happy as possible, because in the next, say 5 years or less, there's every reason to believe, again, we're going to be able to cure some of the nastiest, most horrible problems that have been, essentially killing people for thousands of years. And you could have life longevity. And I'm not talking about like the longevity that they're finding from for dosing up Social Security and discovering that turns out there's like 30,000 people that are over 150 years old in the United States.
Exactly,
that's a different topic.
That's
all right,
crazy.
so
it's choking on my request here for a
no,
second.
there you go. It's getting
Okay, so that's not very long. 2 roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Let me see how long that is. It's not that long. Okay, then took the other just as fair and having perhaps the better claim because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though as for that, the passing there had warned them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh somewhere ages and ages hence. 2 roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference.
Yeah, so your grandfather originally gave you that poem.
Yeah, when I was like 12, I think.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
Yeah, I love that.
Well,
but it shows you, you have choices in life. Which paths are you going to go down?
What's the other one where they're talking about, and you've got time, what's the other one where they're talking about essentially fighting off the passage of time?
You want to go silently into the night one?
Yes. Can you find that one?
I don't know who the author is.
If you put it into AI, it'll find it for you. But this is the other one. And these are, Julie and I found these little things instrumental in our formidable years, and hopefully you guys have as well. But it is kind of interesting how these things that you stumbled across, like when Julie was 12, that how much more meaning they have over the passage of time.
Yep. Do not go gentle into the good night is the name of it. But, yeah. And it is a poem, but it'll give it to me in a second, I think, maybe.
No, it's thinking about it. There it is. Oh no!
It gave me a video.
Hopefully, it didn't give you. Did it give you the script? Yeah, it did.
By Dylan Thomas.
Yeah, just read that.
Published in 1947. Let's see. Do not go gentle into that good night, and rage against the dying of the light. That's what it gives you. I think that there's a longer version, but it only gave me the video. That's okay. You get the gist of it, right?
Here.
There you go.
Okay. We can find it. Yeah, but go online, and the guy's name is Dylan Thomas, and it was written in 1947. Julie, just fire it up. Ask them to show you the words for that so we can read it. We'll end the show today with that.
All right.
This is worth
We're looking
sticking.
it up.
This is worth sticking it out. AI is being a little, it's got a little bit. It just had lunch.
Let's see.
Oh, there. That's it.
It's still working.
Yeah. You guys finding that ChatGPT is getting slower? I certainly am.
I think because everybody's using it.
Well, I think there's a new version of 4.0 and like it just stalled out. I mean, so that's the weird thing that's happening right now. I'm experiencing this too with AI. So speaking of AI, I think the AI that Elon came up with, because he ended up buying a whole bunch of, computers and whatnot. I think his AI is working vastly better than everyone else's. All right. We are really struggling to find this poem for you guys. We're going to read this damn thing to you. Okay, I found it.
Oh, let's see here. Blow it up.
All right, there you go. Do you mind reading that?
No, it's not too long.
Okay.
Okay, let me just adjust my eyeballs. Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at close of day. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Though wise men at their end know dark is right, because their words had forked no lightning, they do not go gentle into that good night. Good men, the last wave by, crying how bright their frail deeds might have danced in a green bay. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Wild men who caught and sang the sun in flight and learned too late they grieved it on its way. Do not go gentle into that good night. Grave men near death who see with blinding sight, blind eyes could blaze like meteors and be gay. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. And you, my father, there on the sad height, curse, bless me now with your fierce tears, I pray. Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light.
So I think that is a good way to end the podcast. It sounds depressing, but it's not. What it's suggesting is that you make the most of the life that you've got. We only live once, and we're dead a real, real long time, it turns out.
Yeah.
So you might as well make the most of the life you've got, and don't rest on what you're conveniently finding at your local GP's office. Go and do your own research. Be your own expert. Be your own guru. Take responsibility for this. And if you're finding yourself being prematurely old, it does not matter if you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, or 80s, or 90s, I suppose. You do still, as long as you're listening to this podcast, as long as you're listening to any podcast, and you wake up in the morning, you're looking at the green side of the grass, you absolutely positively still have a lot of life to live. And that is the greatest gift.
It is.
That is an unbelievable.
Life is a miracle, so
it is.
You got to take
so
advantage
do
of
not
it.
go silently into the night. And guys, do rage against complacency. Rage against the idea that you have to settle or you have to compromise or your best days are behind you. Rage against that your best days aren't still ahead of you. And thank you for keeping this number one list to daily podcast for real estate professionals. Hopefully you guys like our Friday shows. We don't have scripts for them.
And we have warned you.
We have warned you. This is Julie and I being unfiltered, so hopefully you appreciated it. And give us some feedback. Only positive feedback, though.
That's right. Exactly.
You guys have a great day.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.